This video is a good thing. But even though this is a very good video where we talk about a good update for a good player in a good situation right now, ultimately this spells a very big negative sign for the people above, because the way the goodness is flowing through for this story over here kind of seeps into our kind of not really all too good story from yesterday. And if you don't know what I'm talking about Vasili Podkolzin, because he's in a position where he had himself what was a phenomenal Game 4 in the KHL Conference Finals yesterday. And what this did was it cemented Podkolzin as one of these big name, big guy, big game kind of players that goes out there and gets the job done when the team needs him to do it the most. And the reason I said this is a complete contradiction to what we did yesterday, and it kind of reinforces the negative aspects of our story from yesterday, is because I'm also going to be talking about Tanner Pearson in this video as well. I saw the comments for most of you in yesterday's Tanner Pearson re-signing video, and everybody kind of has the same opinion. Even though Tanner Pearson as a guy is cool, you know, he's a hockey player, he's out there, he's doing his thing, he's producing 11 points, 33 games. Okay, it's not the best in the world, it's not the worst in the world. This is a position that the Vancouver Canucks took where they want to stick with that guy who's already 28 years old and stick with him for the next 3 seasons, even though they said our plan is to be good in 2 years. Let alone what's happening in the next few months, would you say? So, let's go over the actual good part of the video and talk about Vasili Podkolzin, because if you don't know, Podkolzin, top prospect, Vancouver Canucks guy, he was drafted 10th overall in Vancouver in 2019, and ever since then, a lot of Canucks fans have been super polarized because his production sucked in different parts of his developmental career. Now, that's not his fault. It's the fault of the management and the overall deployment of the KHL systems that he has been a part of, because they've been cycling him up and down, going to different teams, junior teams, KHL teams, second-tier teams. He's been all over the place ever since he was drafted, but where Vasili Podkolzin lies today is the SKA St. Petersburg main KHL hockey club. In the regular season, he had 11 points, 35 games, that's cool, but in the postseason, you look at the numbers, and he has 9 points in 14 games this year. He has been in a position where some nights, he's going out there, deployed, getting big minutes, getting big chances, and getting big points, but other nights, he's out there as a 13th forward, kind of bottom line guy. He's not being given the minutes, and it's gotten to a point now where the inconsistencies are so consistent that we kind of expect it at this point. But Vasili Podkolzin and his SKA St. Petersburg Moscow hockey team found themselves in a position where in the Western Conference Finals, they were down 3-0 against CSKA Moscow. And as we saw throughout the playoffs, throughout these hockey games that are being played in the KHL postseason, when the going gets tough for SKA St. Petersburg, when their backs are against the wall, what do? They start getting desperate. They start going out there and doing what actually needs to be done to allow them to win hockey games, and they take that extra step because they know that if they don't, they could be eliminated, they could lose, they could be completely out. And what we had yesterday was another game where Vasili Podkolzin was given that role. It's almost like they sat him down on the bench and they said, Vasili, we're 1 game away from losing and being knocked out of the playoffs. Can you help us here? And he said, yeah, because Vasili Podkolzin yesterday, in an SKA 3-1 win over CSKA Moscow, had himself 2 assists and the empty net goal to seal the deal and keep SKA in the series, because they kind of needed the support. And this guy came out here showing to everybody that, yeah, he's got what it takes to be that guy that keeps his team in a series with life. In fact, take a look at some of the highlights. If you just search Podkolzin's name on Twitter, you can see posts from Chris Faber, posts from Cam Robinson talking about Podkolzin and showing off some of the highlights of what happened in this game number 4 against CSKA Moscow. Podkolzin had some shots off the crossbar, very heavy rebounds that he chased after. He had a great assist where he sent it cross ice from the corner back to the far side blue line. Eventually the shot goes into the net. There was also a play where Vasili Podkolzin took a pretty big bone-crunching hit, and you can clearly see he was in some discomfort afterwards, but even though he was in an uncomfortable position, guess what Podkolzin did? He stayed out there for an extra 30 seconds, defending and still giving it his all to make sure CSKA couldn't get out there on the board. He's just that kind of a warrior, you know? He's got that bite that allows him to be impactful when the going gets tough and things are at their most dire. And that's why we said it the entire time. The scouting reports for Podkolzin, this is a guy that your teammates and your coach, they're gonna love. They just love the dedication this guy has towards the game, the sacrifice this guy puts out there whenever he puts on that jersey and he goes out for a skate. And the thing is, this is a guy who is already a top producer in points in the KHL postseason with 9 in 14 games. He's being given a role here. He's actually exhibiting that he can produce in this role, and he's gonna come to Vancouver next. Is this a guy you slot in your bottom 6 for the next 3 years? As we said in yesterday's video, if you're going to go out there with 4 top 6 forwards of Peterson, Miller, Besser, Horvat, you're going to have 2 extra spots to fill on Horvat's left and right wing. It's going to be Höglander, it's going to be Podkolzin, it's going to be Pearson? You're going to be in a position where you're forced to either play Höglander or Podkolzin in the bottom 6 because there's just not going to be enough room. Or, if they're both playing in the top 6, you're going to have instead a $3.25 million AAV Tanner Pearson, who is declining in that bottom 6 role instead. Alongside of that, Jake Virtanen, whom you also re-signed. You know what you could have done if you wanted to go out there and make the moves and make the money work out and still keep the same level, if not a higher level of effectiveness? Jake Virtanen and Tanner Pearson combined next year, making about $5-something-ish million. Tyler Toffoli's 4.2. I said it yesterday, it always goes back to Tyler Toffoli. But now, if you take a look at how exactly the factors are laid out with this Vancouver team, the Tanner Pearson signing puts them in a position where either Podkolzin or Höglander are going to be in the bottom 6 for the next few years, or it's going to be Tanner Pearson himself making $3.2-something million. The Vancouver Canucks made a huge bet yesterday with their signing that Pearson can still be that 20-goal, 40-point guy. He's not that this year. He has taken a step back, and he's already 28 years old. So, if he's in a position where the decline is linear and he gets worse next year and even worse the year after, you all of a sudden have another Eriksson, another Derek Dorsett, another Lucas Spiza, another Brandon Sutter, another Eric Branson. You have these guys here that are just taking up money despite having no real offensive contribution to the team. And oh, Lego, you can't just say offensive contribution. Contribution in general. Defensemen, for example, they don't need to score points to be effective. Yeah, that's true, but come on. Would you rather have $3 million Antoine Roussel or $700,000 Jason Spezza, who's going out there and scoring goals like crazy? Jumbo Joe Thornton in Toronto's out there getting assists like crazy too. He's making a small amount of money as well. Not this $3 million something crap that Jay Beagle and Antoine Roussel are getting. This management throws money away to important depth pieces while not really capitalizing on what exactly it is that you have in the short term. Even though they said their plan is to be competitive in 2 years. In 2 years, would you rather see Podkolzin or Pearson in the top 6? Assuming Höglander takes a spot permanently. Is that even a question here? So, I don't know. Podkolzin's going out there doing some good stuff. You know, I love talking about how good this guy can be, even though he is in a weird situation with KHL deployment and all that. It's just combined with yesterday's news of Tanner Pearson and the re-signing, it puts some very philosophical questions into my head as to where exactly you go in the next 2 or 3 years when Podkolzin is a full-time Canuck and you already have Tanner Pearson here as a pegged-in top 6 forward. So, talk to me in the comments what you think about this idea here. I know I'm kind of nitpicking things again, but hey, it's what Canucks fans do, isn't it? Tell me in the comments what do you think about Podkolzin and the way he has been performing. Also, kind of expand on the Tanner Pearson idea as well. You know, it's been a while since we've done this. When I think of Vasili Podkolzin, I think of the KHL, I think about Russia, I think about Russian representation in video games that I've played, and I think about Call of Duty Black Ops, because yeah, there was a very big Russian element to that storyline. So comment down in the comments below if you made it to the end, Black Ops as well, for a chance to be featured in the next Vancouver Canucks discussion-based video. I kind of want to revive that because it was a good vibe going around there. So talk to me in the comments what you think. If you enjoyed this video, Rolls 99, and bye.